Okay, welcome back. It is 5/1 of 2015. We're going to take a look at the 3 moments of developing the ethical disposition within the self. In the first moment, we look at habits, which through sedimentation and collapsing down through repetition, habits become a sedimentation of sign-like traits, sign-like character traits. We can loosely construct these character traits into a trait sign model of selfhood. And so we do end up with kind of a ipse trait sign model of selfhood, which does reflect strong signification of continuity. And that strong signification of continuity now seeks to add to it the directional identity of value. So when you move into the second moment, Ricoeur says that in order to acquire this identity of value, which will give our character trait sign model directional sense, we incarnate it in otherness, and then we gather back the unveiled value through an internalization of return. When we do that, we find that values emerge as a chain of loyalty to valued attributes that we uncover. And so it results in a set of distinctive identity marks of value, which we have internalized in return. And we take those and we thematize them into a loyalty of value. And we want to conceptualize it. We want to conceptualize our narrative of an ethic by combining the lexical set of character traits and the structured syntax of our thematization of value. So character traits and thematization of value are combined. That moves us to the important third moment of getting involved in writing the narrative of personal identity, writing the narrative of personal identity through dialogue at the dialogue threshold. But now we're at the dialogue threshold with a phonetic stance of prescriptive ethics. And the triad of prescriptive viewpoint will include the descriptive character traits, the continuity of value that we discovered in our historical positing, our praxis knowledge, and then we take up our phonetic stance of prescriptive ethics and initiate our point of view within the dialogue threshold. We're looking forward in an anticipatory way toward an ethics which we can narrate conceptually. And so we do end up with an abbreviation of habits as sedimentation and identifications as loyalty of values that we have discovered through incarnating that sedimentation of character traits. It just gives the reader a very rough framework of what Ricoeur believes is kind of the spontaneous starting point of action. It's a spontaneity that evolves out of a disposition that of necessity must go out of itself. The individual self possesses a disposition that, because of its ethical thrust and its lexical content, it of its own internal self-actualizing potentiality will simultaneously go out of itself as a necessity of positing itself in external reality. That spontaneity emerges out of disposition. The concept of disposition describes where that spontaneity emerges. And so he wants to point out to us that it emerges because it's very carefully aligned with our sign-like model of character traits and our thematized value system that we possess an attitude of loyalty towards. So you've got that attribute of the psyche of loyalty that creeps in here. It's not just strictly a model of gnosis, it includes emotive characteristics as well. And so loyalty almost triggers our disposition to self-actualize. We've got this internalized loyalty toward an ethical project that we perceive as essential and universal. And that perspective on a universal ethical project creates a latency of loyalty that wants to trigger the internal lexical content of our character traits that we feel are significant. And so spontaneity evolves out of an attribute, an emotive attribute like loyalty. This loyalty is kind of a self-actualizing energy that we enclose as a potentiality, but it will cause the ethical evaluative disposition to self-actualize and enter into that praxis knowledge of positing and return, positing and return. So the cause of this praxis knowledge is a spontaneous self-actualizing disposition of the self, which overlaps, of course, with the motivational base of attestation. Our disposition is going to be almost identically aligned with our motivational base, and it's that motivational base that self-triggers it. It self-actualizes spontaneously because of our attribute of loyalty. Loyalty has almost like a transcendent power for Ricoeur. This emotive loyalty triggers disposition and triggers the motivational base of attestation toward action, and type of action which is what we defined before as an action of praxis knowledge. And the praxis knowledge includes that moment of return, which brings us back to further revising our disposition, which is the self-actualizing power of our motivational base. So disposition, attestation, and praxis all get enjoined together in a continuous loop, and we go from one to the other. We go from that praxis incarnating work to a return, which throws us back into our disposition. Our disposition gets refined, but it also reinforces our loyalty. As it gets refined, our disposition also strengthens its inertia of loyalty, and then that in turn strengthens the entrance node into our motivational base of attestation, and it further enhances the fact that it will self-actualize out of a spontaneity, and then we'll enter again into the praxis of praxis, knowledge, and return. That moment that we posit a particularity enclosed within our universal narrative, our proposed universal narrative. And so for Ricoeur, it's very important to understand that disposition is a disposition which includes with it a loyalty toward the value system that is enjoined in that disposition. There are many particularities of trait, but those particularities of trait in themselves are not going to move unless there's an ethical value framework that includes with it an energizing potential of loyalty, which will cause the content of traits to become almost self-actualizing and enter into the realm of praxis and return. So it kind of picks up, it's a transition point really. He's taking this lesson and using it as a transition out of the last summary lesson, because the agent of attestation initiates the entire process out of a self-actualizing synchrony that is fueled by loyalty toward an ethical project and loyalty toward an ethical eschatological goal. And that will, of course, will be enjoined with our motivational base. So disposition and motivational base get combined in kind of a co-mutual union within the psyche level of the self, and it becomes kind of a potentiality of dunamis, which seeks to actualize itself as an energia. So it gives us a really good kind of initial look, like here's where we're headed after the summary position. Now we're ready to head into the realm of ethics for Ricoeur, and the realm of ethics is going to be very much interested in looking at that loyalty as a dunamis power that creates self-actualization of praxis positing and praxis return. So he's got us at the beginning. At the beginning, he just gives a very rough framework like he did in the first part of the book, but now we're in the